Hey guys, I'm Randy.
And I'm Daniel.
We're two lifelong friends and musicians, and when we're not playing gigs, we like to talk games.
And today on Gaming Gig, we're talking about Psychonauts 2.
Well, Daniel, a few days ago, I finished playing Psychonauts 2, so I'm just excited to talk to you about it. But I want to say, before we get started, we're going to try to keep it spoiler-free. And if we do talk any storyline stuff, we're going to be talking about some of the earlier stuff in the game, so that if you're interested in this game, you can listen to this knowing that you can go into the game and not have anything spoiled for you.
Yeah, you're safe with us, guys.
Yeah.
All right, Randy. So you've been playing this game for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard you say a few things about it. We've been kind of actively trying to not talk about things we know we're going to record episodes about.
Yeah.
But we're not perfect. So I've already heard a few of your thoughts. But, I mean, just tell me a little bit about the history of the game, because I've honestly never even heard of Psychonauts until recently. And apparently there was a first one.
Yeah, there was a first one back in, I think it was 2005. And this is a game that came out as I think it was a Kickstarter to create the sequel.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's been what, 15, 16 years later. It's been quite a while since the first game. I think the first game came out on Xbox. At least that generation. It may have been multi-platform. Mm-hmm. But I didn't play the game.
I never even heard of it back in the day.
Really? I had heard of it. I remember seeing it. I think actually my brother may have had the game, and I just never played it. But I do remember it being around. But now that this second one came out and it got so much acclaim, I thought, gosh, I got to play this game. I got to see what it's all about. Plus, I love these kind of like vintage style platformers, these kind of collectathon things.
For someone like me who's never even heard of that first game, would you say I need to go back and play it before I jump into the sequel?
No, I don't think you do. And I did a little research on this before I started playing the game because I had the same question. I didn't know if the first game was essential, and if I went to the second game without playing the first one, if I'd be completely lost in terms of story. But at the beginning of the game, there's a really great recap that kind of tells you what happened in the first game, as well as there's an in-between VR game that came out as part of the Kickstarter. It was like a stretch goal, and they released it before, and it kind of takes place in between these two games. So all of that's recapped in the very beginning of Psychonauts 2. So you absolutely do not have to play the first game, although it is available on Game Pass.
Yeah, it's on Game Pass.
So, there's no reason not to play it, unless you're like me. I was kind of on a time crunch. Mm-hmm. I wanted to play Psychonauts 2, and I wanted to kind of do it before the Game Awards.
Yeah.
I decided to not play the first one, although I might go back and play the first one because I enjoyed the second one a good bit.
Okay. So talk to me a little about the story. Would you say that it had a pretty strong story, or was it kind of hit and miss?
I think the story was really great. In fact, I probably would go as far as to say the story is the best part of the game. It was really interesting all the way through, especially the villains were really interesting, and they were really well developed. And the main character, Rasputin, he was really interesting too. And his family, and there's a whole lot of great story elements that go into this. And yeah, the story was awesome.
It sounds like there's quite a few characters in that game. You just named you kind of glossed over, and his whole family.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of characters in the game. A lot. Because there's Rasputin and his whole family, and he has probably like an 8-person family. And then there are the Psychonauts. There's like the old Psychonauts, so I think there's like 8 of those. And then there are all the people who work at the Psychonauts facility. And then there are the kind of Rasputin's, I guess it would be his kind of like his classmates. He's an intern, so there's the fellow interns. And there's probably 8 of those. So there are a lot of characters.
Okay. Sometimes I really like that, but I'm already a little confused. So how did they manage all that?
Well, I would say that some of the characters were better fleshed out than others. Certainly the main characters like Rasputin and the villains were really well fleshed out. But I do think one of the negatives of the game is that there are so many characters that they really didn't get to flesh them out as much as I would have liked to have seen. Mm-hmm. They were all interesting, and they all had really great voice acting. They were all really well done, so I would have liked to see more, but there were just so many that they really couldn't have done it without really bloating the game. And the game was a nice tight package.
Mm-hmm. How long did it take you to beat it?
I want to say it was probably like around 15 hours.
Okay.
Maybe
that's a good length.
Maybe a little less, maybe 14 hours, somewhere around there.
As I get older, I really honestly think that's a really good length.
I do too. Yeah.
Back in the day when I had way more time on my hands, it was like I held 30 hours as a benchmark. And I was like, man, if it's over 30 hours, that's worth buying. But now I love games that are a little shorter and tighter and easier to kind of bite off in smaller chunks.
Yeah, honestly, I think 15 is a really great number. Honestly, 10 hours for me is like the perfect game. I know that that's a really small number for a lot of people, but I like to play a bunch of different games, and 10 hours is just long enough to feel like you really get into the game and not so short that you feel like it's over before it begins.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it's shorter than 10 hours, like say like Metroid Dread.
Yeah.
It's somewhere under 10 hours. It's probably around 7 to 10 for most people.
Yep, absolutely.
And it was about the right length, I think, for that style of game. But for a lot of games, I think it would have felt a little short. But still, I think that 10-hour mark is about right.
Yeah. I mean, now that we're doing this channel, I'm also trying to play more games, but I don't have any more time than I did.
Right.
So I'm with you. Like, maybe 10 hours is an even better number.
Right, yeah. But to get back to Psychonauts 2, it was a good length. But there were so many characters that there was just no way they could flesh out all the characters. But they got some awesome voice actors.
Chris Pratt?
Chris Pratt was not there, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jack Black?
Jack Black, yeah. I think actually Jack Black played like 70% of the characters.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What about that lady from the Queen's Gambit?
Yeah, she was in there too.
Okay, I'll stop.
No, I don't know any of the characters. I didn't know any of the voice actors. There was one voice actor that seemed really familiar, and Catherine and I thought that it may have been someone. I don't remember who we thought it may have been.
I think it was Charlie Day.
Oh, man. You're just trying to throw me off here.
Nuh-uh. So tell me a little bit about the way the game plays. I mean, I understand it's got great voice acting, great characters. All that's great. But none of it matters if the game doesn't play good.
Right. So the main mechanic of the game is that you have these psychic abilities, and there are a number of psychic abilities. I want to say 8. And you assign the psychic abilities to the shoulder buttons, which there are 4 of. And you kind of need to constantly swap between these psychic abilities to solve puzzles, because there is some puzzle aspects. But also sometimes you need these to traverse. Like, for example, one of the psychic abilities is levitation, and you need that one all the time for traversal.
It's levitation, Holmes.
You end up swapping these out a lot. And what I ended up doing is I assigned levitation to left trigger, and I assigned, let's see, what did I assign to right trigger? I think I may have written that down in the notes because this was important. Yes, so I assigned levitation to left trigger, and I assigned the grab to the right trigger because those are ones that you use all the time, and I just kept them there the entire game. And then I swapped out the L1 and R1 buttons all the time depending on the situation and what I needed. Because there were a number of abilities, some of them were really awesome. Like there was like a psychic blast, like I think it was called Psy Blast. And that one was kind of your main, it was kind of your shooting mechanic. If you wanted to shoot someone from a distance, that was what you used. And that was really useful. So I kept that one around a lot. There was also an ability where you could stop an enemy. You can like freeze them in time.
Like a stasis.
Yeah, it wasn't a complete stasis. It kind of slowed them down so they were in slow motion. But some of the enemies were really hard to get in on.
Yeah.
And you could slow them down, and that helped you. You could get multiple hits on them real quick, and you could take them out. That was pretty cool. But there were some other psychic abilities that maybe weren't as interesting or as fun. There was one that was it was called Mental Connection. But it really, what it was, is it just made it so that you could kind of zap to and from these little mental connection points, and it was basically only for puzzles. It felt a little forced. Okay. I think when the game was at its weakest was when it was trying to put you in these arbitrary puzzles that you just had to complete just to get to a certain area of the map.
I never like it when any game does that.
Yeah.
That's a critique I've got of The Last of Us. That's a critique I've got of Final Fantasy VII Remake. I never like that. Yeah,
they just kind of don't make any sense, where it's like, you need to get to here, but you just need to do this one random thing to get there, and it doesn't make the game any more fun. It just makes you do something that is kind of out of the way.
It slows you down.
Yeah. And the mental connection ability was definitely that pretty much every time. There was also another similar ability, not similar in its mechanic, but it kind of was similar in that,
in the way it made you feel,
which was, there was a thing called projection, where you'd draw out a copy of yourself. It was like a 2D copy of yourself, and that thing could fit through bars and like press buttons. But again, it was just something just blocked your way just to slow you down. So it really wasn't that useful. It's just when it puts these obstacles in front of you that you just need to get this one task just to get through them, to me, that stuff's not very fun.
No, I don't enjoy that either. But maybe somebody does, And since you can apparently map 4 of these to the shoulder buttons at a time, maybe there's some other people out there who found some cool uses for those. Who knows?
Right. And I'm not saying they were like awful or anything. I just think that some of the abilities were definitely more interesting and more functional than others. And I guess that just comes along with having 8 psychic abilities that you kind of swap between.
Absolutely.
In terms of other controls, the platforming was really great. And I know this is in general a platformer, so that needs to be good. If a platformer doesn't have tight platforming, it's not fun. But this was awesome. I never had a time where I felt like the platforming wasn't forgiving.
It seems like 3D platformers have gotten better at that over the years.
Yes.
Because I remember back in the day, I wasn't always crazy about a 3D platformer because I just felt like depth perception was weird.
Right.
But it seems like in recent years, that's no longer an issue.
Right. And it certainly wasn't here. The camera controls were good. I think that's a big thing, having good camera controls.
Yes.
And just having really clear, platforms to land on.
So you talked a little about the platforming. Tell me about how you maybe use some of these psychic abilities along with maybe some conventional melee attacks with the actual action or fighting part of the game. Because I know it's there.
Yeah, this was actually one of the cooler things about the game, in that because you have these 4 shoulder buttons, you can actually use the psychic abilities in tandem with each other, at the same time. Like while you're levitating, you can, shoot and, you can grab. And that was really fun because you get into this flow where you're kind of doing all these things at once. And if you got good at it, it was really fun. The fighting in general wasn't great in this game. The melee was kind of clunky. It never felt awesome.
Yeah.
But traversing around and kind of using all these abilities together was fun. And I'm sure there are people who have gotten really good at the combat. I just never got good at it. There were times that I felt like this is really fun. I was good at kind of using them to traverse, but I never got good at combining the abilities to be really good at combat.
If you're somebody who got really good at the combat in Psychonauts, drop us a comment and let us know why Randy sucked.
Yeah, let me know. Let me know what you did to get good, because I never felt like I got good at the combat. Even to the end, I felt like I was always kind of improvising and trying to figure it out. I never felt like I, really perfected it.
So from what I saw of the game, it looked really cool. Like by looked, I mean the graphics looked cool. What was your impression of the graphics, the art style?
Yeah, it was very stylized. It had a very specific style, and they were obviously trying to build upon the graphic stylings of the first game. It's a very quirky, unique graphic style, and the color palette is kind of restrained, and it kind of sticks to a certain color palette throughout most of the game. And I think that gives it a really unique identity. That being said, they didn't blow me away. They didn't really do anything awesome for me. But it's hard to create your own identity in gaming. It's hard to have a style that's all your own, and this game certainly does that. So you got to give them like major props for that.
Yeah, I mean it had a really unique look just based on what I saw, and it reminded me of games kind of like Ratchet and Clank or Jak and Daxter, where it has that real stylized kind of goofy look, which gave me some preconceived notions about the game that I'm finding were very incorrect.
It got nominated for Game of the Year.
Yeah.
And I think in a year where maybe more games had come out, I don't think it would have been there.
So you think it benefited from the great game drought of 2021?
I think it definitely did. And I think it was also really hyped because of it coming back after so many years. And a lot of people were really excited about it. But was it Game of the Year worthy? I don't think so.
So someone who already has Game Pass, they can play it for free, you would say go through and play it.
Yeah, it's definitely worth your time, especially if you like platformers.
But someone who doesn't have Game Pass, is it worth full price? Would you go out and buy it, spend your money, play through Psychonauts 2?
I think that really comes down to what type of games you like. If you are really into 3D platformers and you think you're going to enjoy it, you probably will. That being said, if you're not into these games, it's not like it's a must play. It's not like you have to play this game. It doesn't matter what type of gamer you are. You need to drop everything you're doing and play this. I wouldn't say it's one of those. Just to give some context, with every game that I play, I rate them out of 1 through 10 in an app I use. And for this game, I gave it 8, which is a really good game. In my mind, a game that's an 8, I really enjoy. So that's where I stand on it. Do I think it was the best game I played this year? No. But it was a good game. And I do like games in this genre.
Yeah. I hope to play it eventually, and, I'll let you know what I think about it. But if you've stuck around this long, maybe you played Psychonauts 2 or at least care about the franchise, so let us know what you think. We also want to let you know we now have a Twitter. We're trying to post when all our videos go live, as well as some polls and things like that in between. Our handle is @GameAndGig. That's all words. There's no ampersand. So go over there, give us a follow, and let's continue the conversation there.
Yeah, guys. And until next time, I'm Randy.
And I'm Daniel.
And this has been Game and Gig.
Peace out.